it's really important that when you start the call, that you make sure that you have the time to do your job. The reason for that is very important. In step 3, we're going to have a sit-down conversation with our homeowner. I have to have time to do that, right? What I don't want to have happen is get to the end and they say, I got to go pick up my kid at school. As I said, at the end, we want to have a sit-down conversation with our homeowners. The last thing we want is for the homeowner to say, well, I got to go pick up my kid from school. Can you just email me the quote, right? Which is the kiss of death. So, and the time commitment is a very simple process. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, you're going to explain what you do. Depending on how long it takes to do your diagnostic, do your maintenance, do whatever it is that you're here to do, this process could take an hour or so. Is that going to be okay today? And typically, if the appointment was set properly, they will know it's going to take an hour or so, and they'll say, sure. If it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to say, so there's nowhere you need to be at exactly 3 or 3:30. It's really important that you verify that time availability, because as I said, you don't want to get burned at the end. And if you get down to the end and they got to leave and they tell you to email the quote, that's the kiss of death, right? You're going to basically get the maintenance and that's it. So that's really important. When you talk about this process, in fact, this entire process requires that we slow things down. A big part of the problem, I think, is we get in too big a hurry. Sometimes that's not the technician's fault. If we book 6 calls on a technician in a day, they're not going to have much time to do any of this. I would tell you this, that the best companies, the most profitable companies, only put their technicians on 2 or 3 calls a day because we need them to have time to have these conversations if we want to go beyond the $150, $200 per call. You know, if you have 10 calls in a day and you give them to 2 technicians, you know, you're going to have limited revenue. If you take those same 10 calls and give them to 4 technicians, I promise you, you're going to see 2 or 3 times the amount of revenue because your technicians will have time to get in and follow these steps, build the relationship and all that kind of stuff. We all know that people are busy. More than ever, people are working out of their homes, especially since COVID. We know at the end when we want to talk to them about their recommendations, it's not uncommon that they might be in their office, home office on a phone call or something like that. So again, we have to anticipate these challenges. And as experienced professionals, we should know that these are situations we're going to face. So we got to set the foundation for overcoming that. And we're going to do that right here by getting permission to offer additional solutions. Once we qualify our time, we simply say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, it's not uncommon as I do a maintenance or a diagnostic, whatever you're doing there, that I find some additional issues, maybe with efficiency, maybe with safety or code issues, comfort, whatever it is. If I find any of those issues, should I just keep that information to myself, or would you like me to share it with you? And it's very important that you phrase it that way. The human nature tendency is that when people push, we tend to push back. If you put your palm up in the air against somebody else and don't even tell them to push back, just start pushing them and see how quickly they start pushing back without you telling them to do it. It's human nature. So when we push homeowners, which a lot of people have been doing the last 20 years, they'll start pushing back. So I always like to say, if I find those issues, should I just keep them to myself? I physically withdraw from the homeowner. Should I just keep those findings to myself, or would you like me to share them with you? And that will draw them in. They'll say, well, no. If you find other stuff, bring it to my attention. Well, they just invited me to bring it to their attention. So now when I get to step 3 later on, I can say, Mr. Homeowner, earlier you said to bring these things to your attention. I'd like to sit down and share the information with you. You put yourself in a much better situation. By the way, will this work 100% of the time? Of course not. This is about putting ourselves in the best possible situation to be successful. There are absolutely no guarantees in anything in life, especially in communications and human interactions. So you get your time commitment, and then you got to get permission to offer additional solutions. The last bullet point on step 1 is this relationship, F-O-R-M, form. Form is an old acronym from Zig Ziglar, who's a legendary sales trainer. And it's an acronym for family, occupation, recreation, and material possessions. What the purpose of it is to give you some type of guide to start a conversation with your homeowner. I will tell you that as I've gotten older, I'm in my 60s now, the relationship in sales is supreme. It's more important than price. It's more important than technology. It's more important than anything. People buy from people they like. By the way, people also buy from people who like them. So we have to start building these relationships. And the form method is very simple. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, tell me about your family. How long have you guys lived in town? Is your family from here? Occupation, what do you do for a living? Wow, how'd you get in that line of work? Recreation, what do you do when you're not working? Wow, that sounds like an exciting vacation you took. Material possessions, you see that Harley or that RV or that whatever it is, you start talking about those things. You can't rush through this process if you want to be a top performer. Now, if you're happy with a $100 average ticket on a maintenance call, again, don't worry about any of this stuff. But if you want to see massive transformational production on these maintenance calls, the kind of stuff that will change your zip code as a technician, it'll change your complete financial fortunes as a business owner, then you have to take the time to do these things. It's not optional, not if you want to perform at the highest level. So that whole step one introduction takes about 2 minutes. Now, the relationship obviously is running through the thread of the entire call, right? You got to put it somewhere, so I put it in step one. This is something you're doing throughout the entire call. Find something that your homeowner's interested in and get them talking about it. By the way, as I mentioned, we all know that people buy from people they like. The flip side of that, sometimes people forget that people also buy from people who like them. So it's important that your homeowner understands that you value them and you respect their opinion, that they're not just a commission or a transaction for you. How do we do that? The simplest way I've ever found is by asking advice from your homeowner. Once you find out the thing they're interested in, family, occupation, recreation, material possession, once you find out something they're interested in, ask their advice about that thing. They've got a Harley out in the garage. Say, man, I've never had a big bike like that. What's it like? How would I even get started? What would be a good starter bike for me? Just ask their advice. Why is that important? Well, ask yourself, who do you ask advice from? You ask advice from people that you like and trust. So if I ask your advice about a motorcycle or fishing or hunting or whatever, I'm sending a very strong message that I respect your opinion. I value your opinion. People buy from people who like them. So it's really important that we take the time to build this relationship. I'll give you kind of an extreme example. I was on a plane a number of years ago from Denver to Atlanta, and I sat down next to this gal. I don't talk too much in the planes normally, but she was sitting there and she was kind of a Southern belle, and I got to talking to her. And I decided to have a little experiment and see, it's about a 3-hour flight from Denver to Atlanta, and wanted to see kind of, how much I could keep her talking. And I started asking her about her family. Turned out she was going to Atlanta to go on to Louisville for the Kentucky Derby. Her family was into horse racing. Talked about that, talked about her brothers. Once that kind of died down, I'm like, what do you do for a living? She was in pharmaceutical sales. Had a ton of questions about that. What do you do when you're not working? Blah, blah, blah. And on and on and on. We get to Atlanta 3 hours later. And here's the craziest part. I bet you in that 3-hour flight, I may have spoken 15 to 20 minutes, right? She did all the talking because all I did was keep asking her more questions. But here's the funny part. We get off the plane and get out in the main terminal, and she comes over to me and gives me a big hug. And she says to me, "You're the nicest man I ever met." And I'm thinking, you don't even know me, lady. I haven't said anything. I haven't told you anything about myself. But that's the way it works with people. If you let them talk, if you show genuine interest, if you ask their opinion about things, it sends a powerful message that, hey, you're a good person. I like you. And they will respond to that. So this may sound like kind of a soft skill, but I'm telling you, if you want to perform at the highest level, you got to slow your roll. Make sure you have enough time to do your job. Get permission to bring up these additional findings to your homeowner. Build those strong relationships. Ask questions. Show genuine interest. Ask their opinion about certain things. It's really, really important that you do this. Takes about 2 minutes. Takes about 2 minutes to do your warm-up, your introduction, get your time commitment, and get permission, and then start building your relationship, right? Step one, critically important. If you don't do this, you're not going to have the success that we've had. It blows me away a lot of times. People are like, man, I want to have the success that you have in business. 0 to 20 million, 0 to 42 million, all these different successful companies we've built. I've had clients that have sold their companies for 50 million to 125 million, massive success. And people will say, well, I want that kind of success. And I'll say, well, here's what we do. Like, I don't want to do that, right? Well, I mean, if you don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, then then just get content with mediocrity. If you can live off $150 on a maintenance call all winter long, God bless you. You must have zero overhead. I'm trying to build a successful company, and we want our people to make good incomes year round, right? Nobody goes to your service technicians and says, hey, you're not going to have to pay your mortgage this winter. They've still got mortgages to pay for. They've still got diapers to purchase, groceries to buy. So if we're going to succeed in that environment and not just scrape by in the bottom of the barrel, just barely exist, then we got to get better.